everybody, my name is Tanya and it's been a while, but welcome to my November wrap up. So November has been an incredibly busy month for me and everything just kind of fell by the wayside. So I've been incredibly busy with work this month. I've spoken about before, we were in the process of opening a new library and we've now opened. We opened later in November and it is just absolutely amazing. It's just such a stunning building and I'm really loving being able to work there. But it took a lot of my energy and focus, so there's been a lot of kind of mentally draining work, there's been a lot of physically draining work. It all came together, it's open, it's amazing. But when I got home in the evenings after putting in kind of longer days, I just didn't have any energy for filming or editing. I haven't filmed basically anything this month. I've got at least 4 videos waiting to be edited. I haven't done any editing this month. I barely did any reading this month. I think it's kind of been building too in terms of BookTube and the pressures that you can kind of put on yourself from BookTube to be reading all the things and putting out all the videos, and it's a self-imposed pressure or a self-perceived pressure, but I think it's something that was building, and my ridiculous TBRs and joining all the buddy reads and doing all the things just had to come to a head at some point in time. And I think November was finally that time that everything kind of broke a little bit and I just went, I'm not even going to push it because I don't want to burn myself out entirely, because I still really enjoy being part of BookTube and I don't want to ruin that for myself, because there were points in the month that I kind of thought to myself, I don't care if I never film again. And I don't want to feel that way because I enjoy this so much. So throughout November I did actually manage to finish 5 things, which is actually really impressive because 3 of those were finished in the last 2 days of the month. So for a long time there I had not finished anything at all. So the first book that I was able to complete in the month of November was actually an audiobook, and one that I started in October, and that was Ship of Magic by Robin Hobb, which of course you've heard from many people this year on BookTube. Ship of Magic is the first book in her Live Ship Traders series, and I've been wanting to get to this for ages because as I was working through the Farseer books, hearing just amazing things about Robin Hobb's further series, so I was very excited to get to this, and as expected it was absolutely wonderful. So I listened to the audiobook of this one, which was fantastic. I would highly recommend it. It's narrated by Anne Flesnick, and I think she does a fantastic job giving voices to the different characters. Where the Farseer trilogy is very much focused on Fitz, and Fitz is a character and Fitz's thoughts, the Live Ship books are told in third person and jump around following different characters and different character perspectives, which I found really interesting. I really enjoy Fitz as a character, but at the same time I struggled a little bit with some parts of the Farseer books when we're very much internalized in Fitz's mind and I just want to give him a shake. So jumping around to different perspectives was a little bit refreshing and I quite enjoyed that. There are definitely some people I'd like to shake in these books as well. I think Robin Hobb is very good at eliciting very strong reactions, both through her characters and the plots, and everything that happens in her books is very well designed to incite those really strong reactions and to really bring you in and make you feel along with the characters, and I think that's fantastic. It of course does make it quite a draining reading experience in some points in time when you're feeling so strongly some of the horrible things that happen in her books, but I think it's really a good sign of an amazing writer who's able to do that. I definitely am the kind of reader who puts myself into the situations that people are going through in books, and she just makes that experience so much richer, and I really enjoy the experience of reading a Robin Hobb book. So I'm sure you've heard this spoken about many times already, but as a brief rundown, our main kind of character is Elthea, who's part of a trading family, and a trading family who has a live ship, and a live ship is a ship made from wizardwood, and after 3 successive captains from that family die on board, the figurehead of the ship quickens and comes to life, and fully developed personalities of their own, and just the whole concept is really fascinating. I really enjoyed it. Althea is expected to inherit her family's live ship her entire life basically, and upon her father's death things go in a different way, and it kind of follows what happens on from there. And it's really interesting because you want to see it in black and white, in that Althea has been wronged and that there are evil characters, but there's kind of a lot of light and shade, and so we get very evil characters who you want to hate, but then you kind of get a scene showing them in a slightly different light, a little bit more intimate and a little bit of a glimpse into their mind that makes them maybe not so bad after all. Or you get Althea, who you want to be completely on her side, but maybe some of the criticisms aimed at her are founded in some way. And so I think it's really interesting in that not, everybody isn't just all good or all bad. They're actual, rounded people, which I think is fantastic as well. So I absolutely love listening to Ship and Magic, and I am definitely looking forward to continuing on with the live ship books sometime very soon. And then the next book I completed was a buddy read, and that was Evelina by Frances Burney, which I read with a number of other lovely ladies who I will link down below. This was a lot of fun. So Evelina was published in 1778 and is kind of a satire and a send-up of 18th century society, and it is just done to perfection. And so we're mainly following the character of Evelina, who is raised in the country by the Reverend Villiers, as her father has never actually acknowledged her and her mother has passed away. And so she's raised in the country with very little knowledge of kind of town, city life and society, and then as events transpire she goes to stay with others and is taken to London to kind of experience London society, and the awkward situations that Evelina gets herself into not knowing the social etiquette are absolutely hilarious. For example, on one of her first outings, she tells the man that she doesn't want to dance because she doesn't want to dance with him, and then a little while later she accepts another man's proposition, and so the first man gets his nose completely out of joint because she's not realised that this is socially unacceptable and just her observations on how ridiculous the niceties of society and that kind of social etiquette are just perfect. And given that this is written in 1778 by a woman, it was so good, and just there are so many laugh out loud moments. Most of this is written in letters from Evelina to the Reverend Villiers, and she's sharing all these details of her, being introduced into society and becoming aware of these social etiquettes and manners that have to be adhered to, and writing it all back to him, which I found really amusing too, that she's talking about all these different men who are showing an interest in her to her father figure, which yeah, I don't think I've got quite the same relationship with my father as she has with the Reverend Villiers. There are some absolutely ridiculous characters in this one. It's very over the top, kind of laugh out loud funny. It's over dramatic, and that's just really part of its charm, just really playing on that satire, and it was just a joy. So then after that I basically went through periods where I didn't read anything at all. Evelina itself, I think I maybe read a couple of little bits throughout the week and then managed to read the majority of it in one day on the weekend. I would start things and then put them down for a week and not pick them up, but eventually I managed to finish something else. So next I finished The Pursuit of Love by Nancy Mitford, which is a book I was reading with Ange from Beyond the Pages, and it took me quite a while to get into this. As I said, I read maybe 17 pages, then I didn't touch it for a week. Then I reread those 17 pages and maybe a little bit more, got up to about page 30, didn't pick it up for a week, and then I kind of devoured the rest of it in a very small amount of time. So I'm really pleased that I read this one. I did enjoy it, but I didn't love it, and I don't think that I was very fair to it. I also found this quite disjointed, and I wondered whether it was just the way I was reading it, the fact that I was picking it up, then putting it down for such a long period of time. But hearing Ange talk about it, I don't think it's just me. I think it's the story that is quite disjointed. We seem to kind of go along for a while, and then a big time is jumped, and suddenly something else kind of major is happening, and I'm there going, did I just completely fade out of what happened, or did we not have any build up to this? And I think it's more the latter. As with Evelina, there's some quite absurd characters in this one, which were fun. The humour is amusing. There were periods where I just didn't care all that much, and then others where it really kind of clicked and it would make me chuckle, and I thought it was, really amusing. So I don't know how much of that is the book is hit or miss and how much it was just my reading mood was hit or miss, basically. In essentials, this one is told from the perspective of Fanny, and it's basically all focused on her cousin Linda and time she used to spend with Linda and her family as a child, and then as they grow up, Linda and Linda's love life, basically. Linda's not necessarily the most likeable character in the world, so it was hard to care very deeply about it, and I think through the way it was told, the disjointed way, you kind of kept at arm's distance, and there are some rather big and rather tragic things that happen through this that are told with not very much emotion in my part, and I don't know whether I am meant to feel it or we are purposely being held at a distance, or kind of how Nancy Mitford is intending this book to be read. In either case, I did enjoy it. I'm interested to go on and read more of Nancy Mitford and the kind of follow-up to this, and see at a different time how I react to it. I think it's something I'd like to revisit at some point in time, just to see how it is when I'm not in this kind of mood and I can read it in a bit more of a coherent fashion. But I think maybe a lot of it is the book itself, but I'm definitely intrigued to try more Nancy Mitford in the future. Then the next thing I finished was another audiobook, and that was my BookTube recommends pick for the month, and that was The Golem and the Genie by Helene Wecker. And I ended up reading this one as a buddy read with Yamini from Skeptical Reader. She saw that I was reading this one in my November TBR and decided to join in. I did end up listening to the audiobook of this one, as I said, which was narrated by George Goodall, and I think he did a fantastic job. I've heard really fantastic things about George Goodall as a narrator before, but I don't think I've listened to anything narrated by him. But I particularly heard great things about the audiobook from Jenny King, and I really enjoyed this. This is the one that was recommended to me by Sarah from Sarah Actually Reads, and she described this as something she loved almost as much as The River of No Return, which is high praise indeed. So as usual, I'm not going to talk too much about this here because I will be doing an individual review video of this one when I catch up, because I'm a little bit behind at the moment, but there will be an individual review of this one coming when I manage to get my filming mojo back. And then the last book I finished on the last day of the month, so just in time, was my Agatha Christie for the month, and this time it was a short story collection. So as usual, not this whole book, just a number of stories within this, and that is The Labors of Hercules. So this one was a reread for me, and it obviously is a Hercule Poirot story, or set of short stories. And Poirot's getting older and he's going to retire, but before he does so, he's going to take on 12 final cases, and those cases are going to be chosen specifically for their similarity to one of the Labors of Hercules. So at the start of this, there's a conversation between them about, Hercule and Hercules, and that Hercule Poirot's labours are nothing on the scale of Hercules' labours, and so he kind of takes affront at that and decides he's going to have his own Labors of Hercules. And so he takes on, 12 different cases, picks and chooses, as they have a kind of tenuous, in some cases, connection to the Labors of Hercules. As I said, this was a reread, and I remember really enjoying it the first time, and I really enjoyed it now. But I don't really have that great a knowledge of the story of Hercules or the Labors of Hercules, and I definitely think it's something that I would like to explore further. After I finish my chronological read through, this is one that I'd like to go back and revisit to read more about Hercules and kind of get the base material, and then reread it to get that added kind of depth to it that I think would be really interesting. You certainly can read this one without having that knowledge, but I think it would be interesting to have that added element to it. So once I finish my chronological read through, there's definitely some more to do with Agatha Christie after that point. So this is everything that I was able to read in the month of November, along with the audiobook that I finished of Ship of Magic, and given the month I had, I'm incredibly happy with this. So if you've read any of these books, let me know down in the comments what you thought of them, or if you have any questions. As always, thank you all for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!